Hello, everyone. We are Ishan and Meg, and welcome back to our third episode. As the school year is just around the corner, we wanted to focus this episode on high school stress experience during the midst of their academic years. Whether school is for you virtually, in person, or a combination of both this year, we know these times can be stressful. During this episode, we're going to ask a few questions and talk about the overall meaning of stress in high school, as well as dive deep into a few questions for our guest speaker, who is the high school graduate and rising freshman at Princeton University. First, let's start off with some facts.
According to a survey conducted by the American Psychological Association, teens reported substantially higher levels of stress than what was reported to be normal. On a 10-point scale, teenagers often reported stress levels of an average of 5.8, as opposed to the quote-unquote normal levels of 3.9. These levels correlate to when teens are in school. However, they also experience higher levels in the summer, with an average of 4.6 on this same 10-point scale. Teenagers also experience other emotions that are often provoked by stress. According to the aforementioned survey, 31% feel overwhelmed and depressed as a result of stress, while 36% report feeling exhausted. Furthermore, the societal pressures teenagers face from their surrounding environment often insinuates feelings of stress. According to Pew Research Center, 61% of teenagers feel pressure to excel in academics.
And without further ado, here's our guest speaker. We have Anika Buch, who is a graduate of Morristown Baird School, as well as an incoming freshman at Princeton University. Thank you so much for being with us, Anika, today.
Thank you, Ishan and Meg. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's great to join you guys for a talk about this.
It's super important topic to talk about. So with our first question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressful would you rate your high school experience and why?
So when you guys sort of like cited your facts and figures and you said the average was 5.8, I believe. And I was thinking about this and I thought I wasn't that far off. I would probably rate my overall experience on probably at a 5. I'd say there were definitely points when it was higher or lower, especially, and I'll get into this later, but as you head toward like junior year and senior year where your academic deadlines and your college application deadlines kind of coincide with each other, the work and the stress levels do kind of tend to increase and they are on the incline. But yeah, I'd say I was pretty lucky to have like a good support system and a strong support system I was comfortable talking to and approaching that kind of like tempered my stress levels and made high school, enjoyable.
Yeah, I definitely agree and think that the support system is really important to have, especially during stressful times. So our next question is, what year of high school did you find the most stressful? And please elaborate on your answer.
Yeah, so I'd say that I found like the spring of junior year and the fall of senior year probably the most stressful. I'm sorry, it's not like an academic year, but it's kind of like half and half. But I just say that honestly, it was just a lot going on at the same time that made it very difficult to focus on one thing specifically, because I think it's, your academic work, which of course you have going on and of course is, a priority for a lot of students. But you also have like college application deadlines. You have like your extracurriculars, which you're really passionate about. And I think that all kind of comes together in a way that can create a pretty stressful situation. And for me, at least, it just made it really hard to focus on one thing and dedicate my time to one thing.
Yeah, I find that when I'm stressed, I'm like all over the place, not organized, same way. So what methods or techniques were most helpful when you found yourself in stressful scenarios?
So I looked to my hobbies. So I took visual art all 4 years in high school. And so for me personally, it's a very like individual thing. But for me, just like drawing, painting, sketching for a class period, so 45 to 50 minutes a week, a couple times a week, really helped me. Honestly, it was like just kind of like a chance for me to not think about what was stressing me and just kind of like focus on something distant from academics. In addition, I'd say that I had teachers that really encouraged meditation and breathing techniques. I'd say that is probably like, if you're in the moment and you're feeling overwhelmed, that is definitely something that is helpful. I'd say going on like a walk outdoors is definitely also something where, you're feeling the air outside, you're just like, physically walking away from what's stressing you. And that's also really important, really helpful. And I'd say paramount would be just like reaching out to your support system. For me, like, I'm very much someone that needs to talk things out. So, talk about what's on my mind. So I would talk to my parents, I would talk to my teachers, gain some advice. But yeah, that sort of thing. I think that those are all techniques I've used to help me mediate stress and keep me mindful.
Those techniques seem really helpful. I have a follow-up question real quick. What qualified these scenarios to be stressful?
I'd say that for me personally, I was just managing a lot at one time, and I didn't really know, like it was just more work that needed to get done than time I felt like I had to do it well. Yeah, so I'd say that is the short version of an answer to your question.
I agree. So our next question is, did you ever find yourself needing support to help manage your stress? Which I think you mentioned a little bit earlier.
Yeah. I think honestly, yes, of course. To me, it's pretty natural. Like talking to my parents when I needed advice, when I needed, a second view. Also just talking to my close friends who were going through something similar, talking to my teachers who this was helpful when I was at school because they were right there, you know what I'm saying? So they were
Yeah.
able to kind of give me on the spot advice, on the spot, like words of wisdom. So I think that that is also something really, really helpful that everyone should definitely consider, like as a support system that is there.
Definitely. So I have a follow-up question just regarding the support system. So I know you answered this, but maybe you can go a little more in depth. What was your support system like, and when did you feel that you needed them most?
My support system, yeah, so like the first part of that question, like yeah, my parents, my close friends, and my teachers. I needed them the most when I was feeling like overwhelmed, and when those feelings of I have too much to do in too little time were kind of becoming more pronounced for me. And I kind of needed to like talk it out. Like I said, I'm very much a person who needs to like speak what's on my mind. So like talking about that, if I needed someone to talk to, if I needed like consolation, things like that, definitely situations where I utilized my support system, and definitely situations that I walked out of feeling a lot better and a lot more like I could be productive. So I'd say that those were definitely valuable people in my support system.
I agree. Talking it out seems like to be my thing. If I talk out what I'm going through, it really helps me. And how did you deal with the pressure to confront what others expected of you?
So others' expectations didn't necessarily like influence me that much because I kind of held myself accountable. I hold myself accountable by, like what I am capable of and what, my plans are for myself. I think it also for me, it's just like I know myself and I know like, if I can do better than this, if, this wasn't my best work, if this wasn't my best foot forward, I think that was a greater source of pressure for me than, what others expected me to do. Yeah, I'd say it was definitely more of an intrinsic type of situation.
And then a quick follow-up question. Was there more pressure when applying to college just to do well and maybe get into a prestigious school?
Yeah, so I'll answer like both parts of those questions. Yeah, of course. So a lot of the pressure, like I said, came from myself. But when you're thinking about, applying to any school, really, there is a pressure to do well because everyone's looking to submit their strongest application, and with good reason. So I think in that sense, the first part of that question is, like, yeah, like, of course there's pressure. But I'd say the second aspect of that, in that, like gaining admission to prestigious schools, I'd say that I think that there's a tendency to like measure success by things we can't control.
Definitely.
So metrics we can't control. So, rather than that, I think, like I feel like if you're measuring things by things you can't control, it fosters a lot. It can foster a lot of like anxiety and negativity. And obviously that's not the best for, like mindfulness and being present, and just, stable mental health, if I'm being honest. And I'd say that rather than doing that, I measured success, for me at least, in the scope of something I could control, doing my best, being true to myself, putting my best foot forward on my applications. So I'd say that that is very much in your control. And it kind of, I'd say looking back, it kept me more mindful and more present, because when I was kind of like waiting on the results, my frame of mind was different. It was just like, okay, I know I've done all I can. I know I've put my best foot forward. It's not in my hands anymore. Rather than measuring success by a different metric where you kind of, I think it is important to acknowledge when you've worked hard and put your best foot forward. And I think by measuring success that way, you actually grow as a person and you get to know yourself a lot better. So that's my little tip, I guess.
I love that. I think it's so important that we focus not only on societal pressures, but what really drives you. And I think that's really important. So our final question is, what is the tip that you have for high school students dealing with pressure and stress?
I'd say that overall, it's important to just know yourself. I think it's important to know who you are, when you're not being yourself, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you maybe need to talk it out, when you need to reach out to a friend, reach out to a teacher, reach out to your support system, and just know when to ask for help, and know how to just, knowing yourself. And then also I'd say that, it also comes down to keeping yourself, like taking care of yourself. I'd say that in times of stress, for me at least, I'd say that it's definitely easy to put self-care on the back burner. But I'd say that taking care of, your physical health, because your physical health and your mental health are connected, so I think that, just taking care of yourself, like exercising, eating well, sleeping well, those types of things are, just very, very important to staying mindful, staying, like in the present, like being present and being productive, and just being healthy mentally and physically.
All right, that's all the questions we have for today. Thank you so much, Anika, for joining us. And I'm sure
Thank you.
Your answers will be extremely helpful for our high school listeners as we embark on this upcoming school year. And thank you to everyone for listening.
If there are any topics that any of you would like to hear in upcoming episodes, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Otherwise, stay safe and healthy.